All right. So yeah, so as far as looking at collectibles, well, part of the reason I wanted to get you on was because I'll be doing a video with Reserve Investments. This individual has been in the antiques and collectibles trade for good probably about 30 years now. And they have a wealth of information from sports cards to comic books to all kind of collectibles. They personally do like coins, graded currency, and some older antique kind of stuff as far as their personal collection. But yeah, I think it'd be really good, and a lot of influencers could probably learn a lot. And then people in general could learn a lot. So I was just trying to get videos with a lot of other influencers to kind of get more awareness on this particular person, because I think when it comes to a lot of stuff that you could think of happening in the sports cards, or not even just sports cards, like any kind of collectibles as far as things going down, they were mostly right about most of the stuff.
Yeah.
um and but they, even though they can seem more pessimistic, they're actually pretty optimistic about most collectibles in general.
Yep.
So that's what I want to do. And then at the end of March, I talk to them. And then I know I get on with, I think, Dan the Card Man sometime in April. And then we'll see who else. I probably won't do many videos after that for a little while, for the next month. And then I'll probably start making videos more regularly.
Cool. Very cool, man. Makes sense. Makes sense.
So the first thing is, how are things going with Funko Pops and like the Funko Pop market? Because I remember you were making videos on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's funny. I was just reading an article about this. I mean, the Funkos themselves are not doing well, man. Like they just dumped like $30 million in Funkos in the trash. Now the reason for that is interesting. Like I heard somebody say like the cost of the inventory and the warehousing was greater than the cost of actually selling the Funkos, like the cost of having to set up to sell them. So they literally dumped them. Now those are the what I refer to as kind of the base Funkos. I still focus on the NFT Funkos,
Hmm.
which are still very which are limited. And I have to say those have been doing really well, man.
Hmm.
Like there was a drop, and just kind of explain this. There was a drop, and every 2 weeks they drop packs of these NFT packs. Okay, every 2 weeks, almost like clockwork. And every
Hmm.
2 weeks, this damn thing sells out, except for the last time. The last time it didn't sell out. Now they only leave a window of 3 hours, which I think is weird. Like I think if they left the window open, it would sell out, but you only have 3 hours to buy the packs. Then they burn the rest. Those packs sold for $10 and $30. They are now going in the aftermarket for $25 and $75 a pack.
Hmm.
So they've exploded in value just in those packs alone. And then the actual physicals themselves, the physicals are still going for anywhere from 50 to 150, 200, sometimes are $300 on the aftermarket for the physical redeemable pops. So those are
Hmm.
still doing very well. And I'm still very bullish on it. It's funny. I've had a lot of people say to me, "Well, you're getting out of Funkos now; they're crashing." I'm like, it's a different set of Funkos, like the NFT Funkos. And I'll grab one. Right. So like if you see this, I don't know if they can see with me here, but these are, damn it, I hate this damn. I'll do this. Can you see me now?
It's black. I just see like a
Let me
black container.
let me stop this virtual background here. I don't know how to stop this. Virtual background. I'm sitting in my office anyway.
And assuming what you're holding is an NFT Funko.
Well, it's a redeem Funko,
Oh,
right?
so redeem. Okay, makes sense.
And see this is what I'm saying. See, this starts as a pack, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have to open it and get it. But there's only 999 of these produced.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And actuality, there's actually less than that made because most people don't redeem them. And that's what makes these things cool is that if like another one has like, I don't know, 2000 out, all 2000 don't ever get redeemed. You normally have like 1900 get redeemed, 1800 get redeemed. So there's the chase of them, there's rarity in them, and then you can actually grade them now. And the other thing I love doing, which I'm doing at the next few conferences, is getting autographs on them.
Oh, interesting.
Now, this to me, I think is freaking. This is my personal love because I'm getting the Funko out of an NFT pack. It's already rare because this one there's only what 1,967 of these made. This is William Shatner. Then I got it autographed by William Shatner, and then I got it graded by PSA. So that's makes it more collectible for me. It's funny too because I was talking to my sons. I haven't been selling any.
Mm-hmm.
I was selling these last year, and I was making easily $100 per Funko that I was selling easily, and with a rough investment around $40 when I figure out the pack price, all the other pieces of it. Um, and then I stopped doing it because I realized I think I'm selling them too cheaply. I think there's just I think they actually is more value in them. I'm going to hold them. I might actually just build the inventory for 3 to 6 months and then see where the market is with in regards to the Funkos. In regard to sports cards, though, I've been selling sports cards, and kind of that's actually picked up a lot. I mean, that market, I won't say it's recovered, but there's definitely churn. There's people buying and selling sports cards. So I've been sending those to like DC 87, the
Mm-hmm.
consignment place. I've also been selling some on ComC, and I've been going to either local card shows or whatever and selling where I can. So that's been fueling kind of my collection, while the Funkos have been kind of just building an inventory there.
Okay. Yeah, I was like interested because there's some, I guess there are a few people have come out and said certain things about Funkos. Because there are some that are like limited or rare. And then what you're talking about, the NFT Funkos, is kind of like a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But like you can find Funkos everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the original Funkos, and even a lot of limited edition ones. Some of them you can still find those almost anywhere. So it's like they kind of remind me of like Pez dispensers.
Mhm.
I had someone who
Those are more collectible, I hear. Like Pez dispensers are actually more rare than people believe.
yeah,
You know?
a lot of them are. Actually, somebody who's in my lab, they used to work at like a Pez dispenser factory or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
They would get free Pez dispensers, and they had their boss collected a bunch of
Did
them.
you see the Netflix special on this?
No, I've not seen it.
Oh my God, dude. Have you heard about this?
No, I've
You've
not.
got to go see it. I think it's called The Pez Outlaw on Netflix. It
Hmm.
is so damn good because it's a story about Pez in the 80s and 90s, but you can understand the similarities on sports cars and other collectibles. And it's really simple. This guy, just a Joe Schmo living, I think, in Wisconsin with his son, they would go to Pez collection conferences and sell them. And I forget how he got into it. I forget if he was an employee or something like that. I think he was an employee. I can't remember. But what ends up happening, he goes to like Czechoslovakia, which is during the time of the Cold War or right after the Cold War. So you have the Eastern Western. So he goes there to what's considered the time Pez International, because there's Pez USA and there's Pez International. So he goes to Pez International and he did some deal with them, and they gave him a bunch of Pez's that were limited to the European market. And again, this is back in the 80s. There's no global commerce. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? There's no internet. So he came back like these bubble face guys. He had 10 or 15 of them. Short story, that blows up. He becomes a major collector. He starts going back and forth, bringing Pez that are from Europe into the United States. And why it's an outlaw is that the United States actually has a ban on certain Pez. Like the Pez company had agreed that Pez USA would only license certain things, like for
Hmm.
Disney or whatever. And Pez Europe was making knockoffs, right? And
Hmm.
the guys there didn't care. So in other words, the guy was going there and doing backdoor deals with people who were at the factories who were saying, yeah, I'll sell it to you, because it was Europe back in the day. So it's a really interesting story, because here's what the killer thing is Pez in the United States, in order to put this guy to business, they decide to just mass produce. So in other words, he's stealing back like this bubble face character one, right? And he's selling them for hundreds. So Pez decides to just flood the market with bubble face characters, and they make it for like 99 cents. And it drives the value of this thing from like it used to be $1,000 down to like $2. But it's such an interesting story because Pez USA talks about how they're anti-collector. They didn't
Hmm.
like the collector community, so they didn't want these to be collectible. They would, anytime they'd find about collectible stuff, they had spies following this outlaw guy back and forth to Europe, because they also wanted to find out who in Europe was leaking the Pez dispensers to him. Dude, fascinating freaking story. You should definitely check it out. Because again, I can see how you talk about the 80s. You can think about how, like, if you're at Fleer, some guy comes over there, does a backdoor deal, gives you a couple $100. Yeah, man, take a couple cases of Fleer 86 basketball. We don't want the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, who cared back then? No one cared. So when you mention that, it goes in there, they interview some Pez collectors, and these guys have rooms like today, modern today, just decorated in Pez. And the guys talk about the Pez passion, and there's a very small niche community of Pez collectors, but still very passionate today. And it just reminded me of sports cards. So when you mentioned that, I was like, man, you got to see that.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I'll check that out.
And I'll also say this too. You mentioned the Funkos. It's interesting right now, dude. Magic the Gathering. You saw what they did, right? Where they had
Mhm,
the what was it? The packs that came out that were like remade from the past,
mhm.
right? Well, Funko did the same thing where they started remaking what was referred to vaulted Funkos. And this is another thing that's pissed people off. Like the original Batman was considered vaulted, and they
Mhm.
came out with like a, I don't know, 10-year unvaulted series. So now they're unvaulting ones that they previously had told people they weren't going to make more of. Now they're making more. Just now they're gonna have different years on it. It's kind of like reprints, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's again why I still think I love these Funkos because they still are limited by the NFT thing. And again, who knows? They could reproduce these again too, but
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's yeah, it's kind of crazy. The other thing that's coming to my mind, like comes to mind, is apparently PSA collectors back, like after a
Oh
year.
yeah.
I was very
The,
surprised.
I am too, man. And I have not heard the story on that because we know that he left the name because he was forced out of it. Like he was told he couldn't use it, which means he had to have either gone to PSA or PSA had to approach him. And I'm betting you, I bet you PSA approached him
Huh.
and probably did a deal. It's just my speculating because look, if I'm him, he was using the name, making a lot of money off it. He was selling merchandise, right? He was doing the boom
Hmm.
and PSA shit. And then PSA sent him a cease and desist. So he stopped. He changes his name to Graded Card Collector, right? And then all of a sudden he goes back to PSA Collector. I bet you they came to him as an influencer and said, hey, you know what? We could use you again or whatever. But I did see that. I have not heard any stories on that at all. He's not as popular though as he used to be.
I
You know what I'm saying? Like,
think I think it's with him, he kind of left still during the hype because like sports card investors continually put out stuff, and
yep.
then I'm not sure how many people are making stuff for him. It may just be like him and I don't know whoever else is in his household or whatever.
Well, it
So
was him and
that
his wife at one point, but that
yeah,
was
I
a
think so.
business for them. I mean, I mean, back dude, before the boom, they were the number one YouTube um, content creator. He had like
Hmm.
50,000 subscribers. He had the most viewed video. Everybody listened to him when he do the whole kaboom. You got to buy these ones, raid this one, follow me on this one. The one thing I will say is that you could tell in his interviews, he really didn't know cards really well.
True.
You know what I'm saying? Like deep down, he also didn't know some of the people he was on the videos with. You know what I'm saying?
True.
But he was a good guy. I mean, I don't knock him for Dorian. Did you see his drunk video where he started making fun of people trying to make money on sports cards?
No, I did not see it. I haven't. I think I like watched part of a video, and that was it. I just noticed that he like posted stuff because I looked on
Yeah.
my YouTube and it was like, oh, there's more videos of him.
Well, I don't blame him, dude. He has like, in fact, I'm shocked with some of these channels that have like, look, Comeback Card Investor, right? He has
Hmm.
20,000 subscribers on his channel. I'm surprised you just walk away from that channel. Why would you not just put up something every 6 months or every 3 months? Just something, whether it's a freaking looping, whatever, man. You got
True.
a plant there, just water it every now and then. It's gonna give you some money. I don't know.
Yeah.
In fact, I
I
thought
guess.
about buying it from him. I thought about sending him a message. Go, can I buy your channel, dude?
um, the other thing was, I guess talking about people kind of coming back. I remember I did see part of a video of like Gary Vee talking about sports cars again. Um, and I guess his take was that he felt like he was like influencing the market too much, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
You're
and
talking about the
then
Jeremy Lee interview, right?
I think so. And
Yeah.
I think he also said that um he was worried about the overall economy because he said that if cards go up by 10%, he thinks that's a real possibility in the next year. Or if it goes down by 30%, he still sees
Yeah.
that as a real possibility.
Well, the thing that I'm bothered by is that no one asks him, and I understand why, because he's not going to ever get on an interview. He only takes friendly conversations, okay?
Yeah.
But someone just simply say, "Look, Gary, I understand you don't care about directly, Gary, gaining from it, but can you comment on the individuals that you got into sports cards who made a lot of money off of it? For example, Steve Aoki. Not only Steve Aoki made a ton of money on sports cards because of Gary Vee. I mean, that was one of the guys that was referenced to being on the $1 million thing. We know that Steve Aoki was not involved in cards before. We know he's a friend of Gary Vee's. And just now, Steve Aoki announced a grading of music. He's going to grade VHS tapes, grading everything. Give me 1 second, man. And never mind, I'll send this a voicemail. But anyway, he's doing a bunch of, and again, I'm not knocking it, but as Steve Aoki makes money, I assume my mind, Gary Vee's making money off that. You don't think he has him a partnership or some equity stake in Aoki's success? And my thoughts are there's probably more than just Steve Aoki, who's made millions on sports cards, that Gary Vee has profit off of. So Gary, when you say, hey, I don't want to influence the market, but Gary, you are influencing the market. You're having more influence on the market than you're even willing to talk about. Like, just own it. For example, you did the V Friends thing, and since then, they've only done Jackass, and they don't even talk about Jackass at Topps. In fact, I think Luber got fired because of Jackass. Because if you think of Topps Fanatics, Zero Cool, right? Do they want to have a family-friendly card company growing 10x with Jackass as one of the labels? Like, what the hell were they thinking? And that's the last release that came out of there, dude. That's what blows my mind. Like, I think they did the Gary Vee deal because Gary Vee had some type of pull to get his Gary Vee cards done first on Zero Cool. And then they're like, what do we do next? They do Jackass. And that's it. Fucking fire Luber. This is me assuming this, guys. This is me assuming this. Fire Luber. He must be crazy. We can't do Jackass and Gary Vee. What's his next pet project? And then since then, Zero Cool has been quiet. But the National last year, they were doing Zero Cool Stranger Things, Zero Cool Dune, which again, we're still waiting for that product. I mean, think about that. That's bizarre to me. And again, that's got Gary Vee's fingerprints all over it, man. You can't tell me it doesn't.
Yeah, I think he's brought a lot of people, into sports cards. Yeah.
Just own it. Don't, I don't know. I understand his comment. He doesn't want to influence cards, but at the same time, own it. You'll be at the National, I'm sure.
Yeah, he'll probably be at the National. I guess he seems to be frustrated that like less people, because I guess he thought that the Zero Cool thing was going to be even bigger than what it is now. And I guess from what I heard, he's been frustrated that like more sports cards people haven't really like embraced the Zero Cool stuff. Because I believe there's like the NFTs, but then now the Zero Cool stuff is also like actual cards, which is, I don't know, it's kind of strange to me.
Well, then he's also doing the toys, right? He's doing the collectibles. I mean, to me, I don't get it, man. I mean, it's just not my thing. I'm not gonna knock it. It's working for him, but
I know what he's trying to do.
It's like a Beanie Baby thing.
So so I know what he's trying to do. So with this whole NFT thing, it's kind of like led people to and there are quite a few other entrepreneurs who are worth close to like tens of millions of dollars, close to the $100,000 range, and quite a few people who are worth hundreds of $1,000s who are trying to build the next Disney. Most of them are in their late 30s to early 50s. And then this is for the reason their goal. I guess, you make a lot of money, get even more famous than what you are. But I think that's his goal. So he's trying to do whatever the Disney model is, making merchandise, cards, collectible type stuff. If he can, probably try to do some kind of film.
I wouldn't surprise if he has a toy line. And I'm not knocking that, right? It'd be a good place because he's doing the V Friend plush toys, but he's got the sports, marketing stuff. And I think he does some management or, agent stuff. So I could see him doing little figurines of toys, right? And then making them collectible. Again, I'm not knocking him. I guess what bothers me is own it and then maybe take a more active role. Here's what I think has been missing in the whole sports card collectible industry is that there's no leaders. Everybody in here just wants some profit as fucking much as they can. No one's like, I want to make money, but I want to make money and make this a better hobby. Let's make changes. Let's make things better. Like the whole conspiracy that was going around with the loaded boxes and the fact that they were holograms and you could see the code on the box and could tell you what the product is. I'm not surprised by that. I mean, if you follow inventory, right? People have to track inventory. They use shit to track it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't, and here's my point, that I don't think Panini wants that leaked out, but it doesn't surprise me that a malicious employee or a hacker could not get access to what the codes are and would leak that out to the community. It's worth, like if a hacker had that information, they could sell and tell you, which NT boxes have logo men in it. That's valuable information. You know what I'm saying? So I wish there was somebody fighting that and say, hey, we need more transparency on that. We need more reporting of that, more anti-fraud stuff. But I don't know. It's not happening.
There was one thing that I just found very interesting. It's like closer to the end of last year, as things were going down, where that you start to hear like more lawsuits popping up or threats of lawsuits. And I predicted that this year you'll probably see even more lawsuits. So far, I haven't really paid attention the last month and a half or 2 months, but I assume that this has kind of been the case in a sense.
Yeah. Well, you saw, I don't know if you heard about the whole Golden lawsuit over the LeBron James.
I heard about it.
Right. My only thoughts on this is I just can't wait for this to work its way through. Now, to be honest, the legal system's slow. So we might not get an answer to this till 2024. But I do think that certain things are going to fall into place. Like I also think that there's a lot of these auction houses that are over leveraged that are going to come crashing down. And there's vaults like that. It would make me scared if I had valuable cards at PWCC or Alt. I don't want to say Golden as much, they're probably bigger, but PWCC and Alt, in my opinion, are on the outside looking in when you think about eBay coming into the vaulting world, right? Like, why in the hell would I want PWCC? And the only reason people vault with PWCC that I understand is they give you a loan on your card, right? It's a cash house. So if that market starts to implode or cash becomes more expensive or that's not a value anymore, why would you want to be there? PWCC has their issues in the past. So I just think we're going to see changes this year in big company stuff. I'm also curious. I don't know if you heard this. Topps came out and said they're going to have some major announcement next month, some generational announcement in collectibles.
I think Sports Card Investor had a video, but I didn't watch the video yet.
Yeah, so the Topps conference. They came out with all this other weird stuff. I won't belabor you on that, but one of the issues was they're going to make some generational announcement on something big in sports cards in April. And again, generational is a pretty bold claim. I have to say that two things come to my mind. When a company marketing wise comes out and tells you you're going to do something big, they could be fishing for ideas, right? Like they don't even know what big is, but they want you to give me them. Or they know they're going to under deliver. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you don't come out and say, hey, we're going to blow your fucking socks off and then really deliver that normally. You normally fail. So to come out and say we're going to do something generational, you're setting yourself up. Like that seems really stupid to me. But I'll wait and see. Here's what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to sign LeBron James. I think LeBron James is going to switch over and start autographing for Fanatics. And probably, to be honest, it will probably be on the Fanatics merchandise first, which is going to piss off card collectors. It's not going to be on the cards right away, but I think he'll probably sign with Fanatics as like some exclusive autograph and person. Now, the other thing which I said the other night, which would be cool, but I don't think this would happen, would be if Fanatics bought Pokemon.
Bought Pokemon?
Yeah. If they bought Pokemon or whatever, that'd be huge. That would be generational. But I don't see that happening. I think it's gonna be something under surprise. I think it's gonna be like they bought it can't be they bought Panini. If they announce they bought Panini and that's a generational move, then I'm gonna be disappointed. I'm like, who the hell cares?
Oh,
and they'll probably argue, well, the first time in a generation, all the licenses will be under one name. That could be the marketing bullshit spin they give you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the last time that was the case was 1980s when Topps had everything, right? Because that was the last time Topps made was every product. So they could say, for the first time in a generation, Topps now makes all major league products. That could be the announcement. If it is, lame.
I guess they would have to buy Panini and Upper Deck.
Well, they don't. So the thing is, they don't have to buy Panini. Panini could sell the licensing rights.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I don't see them buying Panini because I think Panini's still a functioning good company, and Panini's doing other kind of weird stuff on the side. They're doing stuff in Europe. They're doing this crossover thing with Monopoly. Also, why I'll tell you too, you don't want to buy your number two competitor. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to dominate the market. Like in software, you don't want to buy everybody. You want some competitors out there. So just buying the licensing would be all they needed. And then what was the other thing you said? Upper Deck. Upper Deck, I don't think would sell. There's somebody who told me there's some clause in the Upper Deck licensing about ownership, some weird reason that protects Upper Deck. But I could see LeBron leaving with his autograph to Fanatics. You see what I'm saying? I could see him doing that. I don't see Jordan doing it though.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that was coming to my mind was like if they tried to get like all the goats they could in every major sport, or if they couldn't necessarily get the goat, they'd get somebody else who's close enough that they pass off. So as a goat in a particular sport. So maybe they get like same thing with you said with LeBron, maybe they do like Tiger Woods, maybe they do, I don't know, Serena
Which,
Williams.
which let me say this: two things come to mind. Let's say they did that. Let's say they get everybody's under one thing, and they go for the first time ever. You'll get autographs from Messi and Tiger Woods and LeBron James and Michael Jordan, and we're all going to be that's freaking cool. But also, this little voice in the back of my head goes, "Well, there just went the market." You know what I mean? Like all that stuff's not going to be as valued anymore if it's that easy to get.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden, if Michael Jordan is part of that deal, and Michael Jordan's now putting out 20,000 autographs a year in products, Michael Jordan autographs aren't going to be worth as much anymore, guys. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny to me, and the counter argument will be, well, we're growing the hobby, Mike. We're growing the hobby. Yeah, you're growing the hobby, but at what sacrifice for the hobby? Like that means that 30 years from now, we're all gonna look back to that face. Remember, we all grew the hobby. Yeah, we have a bunch of shit that's worth nothing. You know what I mean? So I'm not. I've said this before. I'm not grow the hobby. I am definitely shrink the hobby. And by just being shrink the hobby, that just means grow at a normal pace, man. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Just let it grow naturally. There's no reason to rush it. Don't give it steroids. We don't need to PED the hobby.
Yeah, I am interested because you mentioned cars have picked up a little bit. I have a theory on this. I think, and I talked to Raul from AIH about a lot of times collectibles do very well in low interest rate environments and do very poorly in high interest rate environments. Um, and interest rates have been rising, and I think you know, people kind of believe that at the end of this year they're going to do a reversal because they say they over tighten or whatever, and that's going to affect assets, and then people are just more willing to invest because there's going to be more of a return. The issue with that is they're actually not done raising rates, and they probably like continue raising rates over what was expected. So maybe for the next few months it'll be fine, but then we may see more stuff going down. And I'm gonna be honest with you, some of this stuff I heard LaMelo's. I mean, I checked maybe a week ago or something. LaMelo Ball stuff was still very high to me. There's certain players stuff that's like still very expensive, and I don't think deserve to be anywhere near where it's at. And then I haven't sold much, but I did sell like in UFC. John Jones just won the heavyweight championship.
Yep.
And
I sold some of his NFTs, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I haven't
which I
gotten
thought was
any.
interesting.
I haven't gotten UFC NFTs yet, but I did buy some of his autograph cards. It was like last year, when nobody was talking about them, and then
That's a good move.
I doubled my money on some of them. So yeah, that's I've noticed that, but I'm assuming people are there's still a lot of people who are still trying to flip and invest like before. And that's despite I guess a lot of stuff. I guess KD got hurt recently, Ja Morant issues, like a lot of players and in different sports, so I think are like having certain issues, but I'm assuming people are still doing with the same mentality.
Well, see, I don't know why. Like, I'm still not buying. I'm selling. I'm still acquiring through breaks. I buy into breaks and I'll get product, or I'll pick up my own personal boxes or whatever that I feel good about. But I'm not buying individuals. And I still agree with you, like you said, as far as the economy, we in the United States are still not feeling the real pain the rest of the world is, right? I mean, Europe's definitely feeling some pain and some feeling with the rising gas prices, rising fuel prices, the brink of war on there. Asia is feeling pressure with war and uncertainty. We are still very much, have been isolated from the global world, and that's why I think football prices have been high because the market buying football is Americans. And I think that's why basketball and baseball have not been as high. Now, it's interesting. Baseball is doing very well right now. And I think that could be U.S. and international market. But I still I would just say this 6 months from now, the world could be in a lot worse position. It's more likely to be in a worse position than it is to be in a better position as well. You know what I'm saying? And even a year from now, I don't think the economy or the global world will be in a better position than they are today, it's a better chance we'll be in a worse position. That's scary. So I agree with you on the collectibles as an investment.
Japan, well, so for baseball, I think it's still most popular, I think, in the United States, Japan, and Korea. I think that's where baseball is pretty much the best, and in the Caribbean. And I think outside of that, a lot less people are interested in baseball. So I think United States is still like a major market for that. And also I think vintage is so established that you're still gonna have like interest in baseball in a sense. I think for basketball and football, I think the 1960 stuff is gotten established and back, but or is kind of going through that process of getting established. But yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know if yeah. I mean, talking on some of the world stuff, I probably agree with you that things are likely to get worse before they get better. But stuff still
Like
seems
you heard about the bank issue too, right? The
Wells Fargo or whatever, and
no, Silicon Valley Bank, I think it was, on Fridays had some issues. There's concerns about them having a bank run tomorrow, Monday.
oh,
And that's apparently a trickle down from the whole crypto issue with the FTX.
yeah,
So again, I will say too, we in the world think things happen faster, but the FTX debacle was only a few months ago.
yeah,
That will have rippling effects into this year, and I think that with the banking will have effects. Rising rates, it's just not a good time, man, in the economy. It is not. Like, we're very fortunate to have the security, and even like in the United States, worst case is not like we're going to see riots in the street and people dying, but I still think we're going to see a lot more challenges ahead of us than we're accustomed to, which has got to affect things like sports cars and collectibles eventually. So
yeah. I think so. There's some. Yeah, we'll see. I guess the other thing is I had a prediction of a lot more content creators are probably going to quit this year, just
or
because
pivot
it's
or move into something else.
or yeah, or move into
Yeah.
something else. Um, just because I think the views are probably harder for people to get for the most part, and then it's just harder to make money too. Like you really have to be
The
strategic.
subscribers are hard to get too. Now there's not as many channels. Like back in 2020, a lot of channels went from 0 to 1,000 within months. That is
Mm-hmm.
not happening now. In fact, I'll give you an example. I don't know if you follow the guy. It's EDI Sports Cards. He's got a cool little channel. He was mentioned on Sports Card Radio, right? And they did a blurb on him, and he had 500 subscribers because of that mention. He even does a video saying, "I got 500 subscribers because I was on Sports Card Radio," type of thing. But since then, I think he's at like 600, 700 subscribers. Like, he's not moving much. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that he's not putting out good content. He puts out great content. This all just makes me realize that I don't think there's as many active people consuming the content as there used to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some that get tons of views, but I'm wondering how many views they get real watches versus just
Mm-hmm.
people just kind of clicked and moved on. You know what I'm saying? But it is hard. You're right. Views are hard. Subscribers are hard. It's all changing.
Yeah. Um, that's I think yeah, and also I think it depends on like how many adults are buying cards versus like kids are in the hobby in a sense. The other thing that's going through my mind is like generational effects. So
How
one
many
thing
how many
that
people do you think are in the hobby? And I define that as actively involved monthly, spending on an average, let's just say $100. They're putting a new $100 into buying new stuff on a monthly basis over a year. Not a casual person who just buys once and then doesn't come in for months. Again, I'm talking like actively participant hobby. Is that community a 500,000 people? Is it 5 million people? And I'm even saying globally. And you don't have to answer, but think about that, because I think that number is key in understanding Fanatics, because they talk about 10x the hobby. They're talking revenues. Now
mhm.
they'll say they want people as well, but they need that number to grow. And that is what I think will be challenging. See what I'm saying? Like, I don't see, I don't think that many people who consume Facebook or YouTube content. are doing that much. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot. That's a lot.
Also, I think it also kind of comes into maybe they could 5 or 10 extra revenue, but how does that necessarily affect the secondary market?
Well, also what I'm referring to is people in the hobby, when a lot of people in the hobby are not doing it as an investment
True.
at
Very true.
all. Do you know what I mean? Like I know a lot of people who just they have a like I have a friend of mine who I think he buys a hobby box a month. Now, it used to be around $250. I don't know what his budget is, but let's assume that $250 a month is what he spends on buying a product that he opens in the hobby. Now he's not buying that with intent. I'm going to make $500 from it or $300 from it or anything. He just buys it, and if there's something cool in it, he will sell it, and then uses that next month when he buys again. You know what I mean? And that is the most typical consumer of the hobby, is somebody who buys, they get something back, and they keep the rest and they move on for the next month. And that market, I think, is smaller than people realize. I don't think that's millions of people. I think that market's small.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think, yes.
And conversely, let me say this too. If you're coming into the hobby with any thought of you're getting a return on your investment, that person's not going to stay.
Yeah.
Because that's not what this is about. It's really not. Like, I'll just say this. When I came into collecting in 2015 and I was into it, I realized that most people doing this were losing money. And people I was in breaks with, people buying boxes. We used to joke, the only people making money at that time were the guys opening the boxes, the breakers, right? But anybody consuming, we knew we were losing money. And we're just about how much money you might make back. And then the boom came and everybody was about, I can make money in the hobby. I can profit off the hobby. I can profit off the hobby. Look at my 10X, 5X. And now we're still there are a lot of people making money, but that is not the norm. That's what I'm saying. Like I've always said, the correction will come when you realize this is a hobby. It is not an income stream, and most people will lose money, and they know that. It's like people who smoke cigarettes, right? They're not investing in the future. They're smoking. They're enjoying the cigarette. Poor example, but you get my point.
Yeah, I definitely get your point. Specifically for that. I guess what I was going to add to that is like by generations. This kind of affects the economy too. So like I've mentioned before, like baby boomers are retiring, they got the most money, and they are selling off stuff so they can actually like retire, and then they're not being as active and being consumers in a sense. Yeah. And so also they're leaving jobs. So Gen X, which I would assume would be your generation, is probably more active, and probably is like the next stage up to have like more money to put into the cards in general, whether it's a hobby or whether it's for investment purposes. And also the generation is actually pretty small. So one thing comes to my mind is certain things that is very popular amongst people who are Gen X. How much of that is going to be like very popular long term as well? And
well, let me make a comment on that. It's interesting that I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember hearing this in the past, and somebody can check this for me. But I thought Gen X was the first generation that their lifestyle would not be greater than their parents. It would be equal to or lesser than, and understanding that every generation before that has been able to pass on a better standard of living, better income, better household, better whatever. There's been an incline up. And the Gen X was the first generation where it will be probably more of a parallel move. In other words, if your parents had a house and were dual income people, you were likely to have the same thing. But the likelihood that you'd be a single staying home and your wife is not working is not as likely, right? That the threshold of moving up was not as great. And I think as we continue, there's still that kind of balancing off. And from my perspective with my kids, like I'm not as concerned about what they're doing with their money, but I can tell you they're very money aware. Like collectibles are not about collecting because they want something that's cool. It says it provide. Do they need it? Are they going to use it? You know what I'm saying? Even their jerseys, like they could buy a jersey. They'd rather buy a jersey on the AAU team. Like rather spend the money on their AAU team jersey than to go out and buy another jersey, if that makes sense, of some player. So it's just you're right about the generational stuff and how people are looking at things differently when it comes to collectibles and how they spend that money now.
Yeah. So yeah, I wonder like how much that's gonna like affect what's valuable, what's not valuable. And also certain people get into this lull of this particular thing in sports cards or in any collectible, it could be comic books or whatever. Oh, this is extremely valuable. And then it's that way for 10 years, maybe 15, 20 years, and it completely changes. And I wonder how many people who are, whether doing this, even if you're like collecting, I think a lot of collectors still want their stuff to kind of go in value, because it's almost like validation that other people value what they value as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's like something I'm like really interested in paying attention to.
You know, it reminds me, it makes me think about the impact eBay has had on people because I think to myself, there were a lot of people who collected stuff who never knew the value.
True.
You know what I'm saying? They just
True.
collected it. And what happened was eBay was like, you can go on eBay and see who the last person was that bought that shit. And you go, man, someone else bought this stuff. And that's what triggers value. In fact, my favorite commercial is the eBay commercial where they're sitting there like looking at items at the store and then they start laughing. And they're basically laughing at like a sofa would be on sale for $2,000. And they go, look, the last sold price is, $1,000. They're giving you the impression that you can find it for less. But think about how eBay's done that because so much stuff in our homes, when I go to my parents' house and I'm looking around their attic, I'll find something like, I'll look that shit up on eBay. If it's on
Yeah.
eBay, you're like, does that value? If it's not on eBay, you're like, did I find something special? Because everything's on eBay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's very true. I guess a few other things. I guess when it comes to, are you planning to buy individual players again in certain sports, or like how are you planning to do
yeah,
that whole thing as far as
it's
collecting or investing or flipping or
sure.
whatever?
It's funny. I've thought about it. I have really have. It's just not my game, man. I've done it. I did it on Star Stock back years ago, made some money off it. I will really prefer, again, going after breaks and going after products. So for me, I'm looking forward to the football draft. I think we're going to have a lot of good quarterbacks in this draft, probably 4 or 5 quarterbacks. This last class, though, I'm not very excited about, right? So when it comes to breaks with this football class, I'll probably get in some prison breaks and I will actually go after the Steelers. Like I'll pay the money to get the Steelers because it's the only team that, in my opinion, has value that. I'll go after contenders in football, but I'll be positioning for next year. Now in basketball, I will go after basketball. I think the rookie class coming in will be good. And I'm also excited about next year when the Wamabuya dude or whatever comes out. So I'm looking at those coming classes. And again, I'll say this, I've done this forever. I'm looking as soon as it comes out and I get it, I sell it relatively quickly. Not
Mm-hmm.
immediately, but I'm going to grade it or sell it. I'm not holding on to stuff for years. I did do some prospecting in baseball where when I open baseball product or baseball rookies, I'll keep prospects and Bowman ones. So right now is a great time to look for that because you have the spring league and stuff like that. So those are where I've been making my plays, right? Going after. I still love the rookie prospecting world. It really is. I love the risk gambling side of the hobby. I don't recommend it
Mm-hmm.
because you have to know what you're doing. You have to know what products you go after. You have to know the checklists. You have to be disciplined. But that's what I like doing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, those are interesting. One thing that I'm worried about Fanatics is those are the type of the gambling aspect or the type of people they're trying to focus most on. But also it seems like they kind of care about kids too. So like I will
It,
be kind of.
see, I don't agree they do. I mean, it's not that I think they do or don't care, but they do care about this gambling part. And in fact, one thing that I think there's a story going around with TikTok, quote, banning breaking, which they did not ban breaking. They made a
Mhm.
statement about really mystery packs is what they were banning. Um, but sports cards are gambling. Like I was talking to somebody last night, and I talked about years ago before the boom, my kids and some other friends of mine, we got our kids into free breaks.
Mhm.
We give them cards and they get teams and they get the mail days and they did videos in the mail days. The kids weren't paying out of their allowance or anything. The parents were covering costs or whatever. But we got them into cards. We got them into stuff. And somebody said, well, let's get them into gambling. I'm like, well, if they're into cards, it's gambling. Like, don't be
Yeah.
naive. What I'm hoping is Fanatics will see the responsibility of that. Like, here's an example. Some guy was talking the other night about being a breaker, and there's so many of these guys who are breakers, and he talked about how he cut a guy off because he was buying too much product from him. And I'm like, that's right. You do have to cut people off because this product is a lot like a controlled substance.
Mhm.
It really is like alcohol or tobacco or marijuana in the sense that people get an addiction to it. They want more. And if there is no regulation, this is somebody you can decide this, whether it's a buyer beware, fine, the guy wants to spend all his money and get drunk and be a city bum, that's fine. But if there's nobody watching that, it's going to be exploited. And so I think Fanatics needs to self-regulate breaking and even card distribution. So if you're going to buy from Fanatics at a better price, you're going to have to meet some requirements. right? Like we don't sell sports card breaks at 1 a.m. I know that sounds crazy. Let's
Mm-hmm.
be honest, man. When you're on a break at 1 a.m., you probably should not be in the break at 1 a.m. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just like when you're at the strip club at 1 a.m., you probably should not be at the strip club at 1 a.m. You know? But it's those things that I hope Fanatics will put some safeguards in place, because breaking it's also the lifeblood of the hobby. I don't like the fact that everybody blames breakers for all the problems in the hobby. I will say this: the problem with breaking is that anybody can break. But
True.
if you it's kind of like anybody can make beer, right? But shit, there's some people make really good beer. So if you're getting it from the right person, it's a really it gives a job for people. It gives, you know, livelihoods to people. People enjoy it. It can be done responsibly. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think Fanatics definitely will press the button on gambling with sports cards, right? Like I think they're doing more cross promotions. You know, like someone talked about, they're doing a follow back, right? Where you get somebody to follow you back on Instagram. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
can see them doing player experiences. Come on, people are gonna be paying for those player experiences, so they'll chase that. Now, what I'm curious about is if you have something like a player experience, reporting that out, so people will know that someone already pulled the gold and take it to get you the player experience. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that it yeah, I guess there's always this anticipation, and then people what I've noticed is a lot of people speculate a lot about certain things, and then a lot of times people are wrong. One of the examples we talked about in the past is we mentioned earlier was like Topps buying Panini. This hasn't happened yet, and people were so sure this was gonna happen. Um, and it's quite it's been a lot of stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Um,
you made the comment on speculation. That's why, you know, someone said a long time ago, you can't get broke taking a profit.
True.
So one of the things about sports cards that I've said forever, if you're going to be in the investment, when you buy a sports card, you should know at the time you buy it what you are selling it at. It should never be, I'm buying the player, I'm going to watch how he performs. That's stupid, right? You should buy the player or buy the car and go, if it's an investment, I'm buying it $100. If it hits 125, I'm going to sell it because I'm excited about 25% return. If you're buying it because you think it's going to $200, great. But then when it hits $200, sell it. At the same time, if it hits 75 or 50, get the hell out, dude. You can't sit there going, well, I know it's going to go to 200 someday. No, maybe you're wrong, you know? And
so
people do get caught in that.
yeah. I think that's what happens when a bubble happens a lot of time. I'm because part of some of my research is like some neuroeconomic stuff. I'm actually working on a
Yep.
neuroeconomics project that I'm forming. It seems like when bubbles occur, because it's like one of these things, a practical example would be I don't remember who, but somebody bought a Luca base for I believe $100 PSA 10, and it went to $200, and they sold it and they made money. It's like, oh, you double your money. Like you can't really get that in any kind of investment. And then it went to $500, and it's like, dang, I could. And then it goes to $2,000, and then you're already in your head. It's like, man, I could have made so much more money. And I think when you have these crazy swings, when stuff literally like the LeBron James card goes from 1,000 to 46,000, and that's the only ones that we know that were recorded on the internet.
Yep.
I mean, there
Yep.
are people probably well overpaid even more than
Yep.
that, and around that range, around 30,000, something like that. Now it's around 7. I still think that's too much, but like, you start having these crazy games. My favorite one is the soccer for Messi and Ronaldo. They're both of their rookie cards. They're around $4,000 or $5,000, and then they went up to 200,000. And then the weird thing is, because I don't think people, their brain like can process exponential changes. I think we think more linearly.
Yep.
So things go all the way to $200,000, and then people are still like, hey, it's still very cheap. And then there's some people who actually believe this. Now, some people are using it as kind of a marketing ploy because they're trying to make even more money. But it's just one of those things where I think it's just hard. Like people have to like find a way to take a step back or have a negative experience of this happening to them before,
Yep.
for them to be like, okay, wait a minute, this is not gonna last. It's great now, but it's not gonna last, and it's probably the bubble is gonna be deflated sooner than I expect, and I need to prepare for it.
Like you say, experience is something that when you when you see an opportunity, you go, oh, I could have made more money. You think you lost an opportunity, and you focus on that. What you should look at is that you had an opportunity, and then look as you move forward, how many more opportunities can I make that put me in the same place like that again? Don't kill yourself for what could have happened, right? Think about, well, I had an opportunity. How do I make four more opportunities like that? Because, and I think that comes with time. It's something you have to kind of wrap your mind around after time. Because I've sold a lot of cards that have gone down or gone up, but I don't sit there dreading. I just know that I sold the card, I made the money I wanted to, and I moved on. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather do that than play the what if game forever.
Most cars that I've sold, me thinking back, I don't think there's any car I was like, man, I just wish I would have held on to it longer.
Well, I won't say wish, but I will tell you this, man. I did sell a lot of Patrick Mahomes cards, and
Oh,
I did have one of the NT RPAs to 99 that is now what, a couple $100,000 card. And I remember getting it in the break. In fact, I remember the breaker. Her name is Crystal. It was a one box break, 2017 NT, and I was chasing Kareem Hunt. And I get this, Patrick Mahomes NT RPA to 99. And I think I was in the break for either, I, it was under $100. I'll tell you that, because when I got it and hit it, I sent the woman a $40 tip. Okay. So I sent her extra $40 to say, thanks for everything. And it wasn't a lot of money, like a tip. But at the
mm-hmm.
time, I was like, hey, I got this great card and I sold the card for $1,000. So I think I put $100 in the break. I sold the card for $1,000 at the time. And I was very happy because at the time, I'm like, who the hell is Patrick Mahomes? I just got an RPA. I'm looking for the next break. And then fast forward, in fact, I'll even tell you this. The next year, I remember selling his silver prisms because I had two cases of 2017 prism, and we had at least 10 of his silver prisms. I remember selling those off between 25, 50, and I think the last ones I sold were $100 a piece.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
thinking to myself, who's paying this much money for a base card of a, no autograph card? It's just that's, I don't regret that, but I do look back on, man, wow. But there are a lot of people like that. The same thing.
Yeah, I would say for like Patrick Mahomes, it's interesting because a lot of people who know sports know that like a lot of these players kind of go ups and down, have ups and downs in their careers. So a lot of people got off the Patrick Mahomes bandwagon after what, 3 seasons? Basically before this season, before this past
Yeah.
season, where he won a MVP and a Super Bowl or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, they always had support. I'd say the first year though, he wasn't on anybody's radar, man. That
Yeah.
first year, 2017, if everybody remembers, he was not playing. Not only was he not playing, Deshaun Watson was playing.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
And Deshaun Watson was lighting it up as a rookie. So all the attention was on Deshaun Watson, man, that year. And it wasn't even on Trubisky, who was sucking, right? But Patrick Mahomes just is not even a thought. It was all Deshaun Watson, how great Deshaun Watson's going to be. Because I remember too, I was in breaks where I got Deshaun Watson cards, and I remember selling those things off. Patrick Mahomes was also hard. He was short print on his autographs. He didn't
Hmm.
sign a lot of cards and contenders. He like I also remember, I know the breaker who pulled his optic contenders superfractor 101 in a break. And in the Facebook community, that was a big deal because it was a Facebook breaker. And I want to say the guy was in the break for, I don't know, very cheap break. And I think he ended up reselling it for thousands. And I could be wrong. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I remember that card going up, and I still know that watching that break take place where that card was pulled. That was pretty cool. And the guy drove. I remember driving to pick it up too, hearing about that. I would as well, man. So listen, I got to let you run, man. I got to get off at 9 and I'm running a little late already.